good early afternoon, early morning, well, afternoon. It's 1 o'clock here on Eastern time. I'm your host, Marlon. How you doing today, Reggie?
I am fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. I can't complain on this beautiful spring day you're having. And I see you're outside and about today.
It's springish day.
We got you breaking up a little bit. You might want to.
Okay, okay. Let me sit still. Yeah, I'm sitting on Ellis Island on a school trip. So, and the
Oh, you on a school trip today?
yeah, that's my daughter and her friend.
Okay. Let's. I think
So you
we're.
should still better hear me now. I'm clear, right?
Yeah. You're coming in better now.
Okay.
All right, cool. So let's see. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Do we have? See, we got anybody in the chat room? I think we're all right. So nobody's in the chat room yet. So all right, Reggie. So again, you know me. I'm always looking at your tweets. You keep my timeline entertained. And I did see that you had some more proof with Ethereum infringing on your IPs, and I did see a discussion. Mainly about device versus computer. And we know Ethereum works as a virtual machine, but if you want to kind of describe a little bit more about that.
Well, it's not so much device versus computer. I'm asking, is the virtual machine a device? It's one of those rhetorical questions. You ask a question, but you already know the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want is to create the conversation. Okay, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Okay, it's just connecting. So, and so Ethereum itself is marketed as a world computer, as a state machine, as global instance, etc. I'm paraphrasing, but it's definitely marketed as a world computer by both those who created it, the founders, the co-founders, the lead scientists and developers, and the Ethereum Foundation itself. And if you look at the definitions of virtual machines, of which the Ethereum virtual machine is one, they describe it as virtual computers, virtual devices, actual devices, etc. And long story short, it's a device. Okay, it's a virtual machine that runs on hardware machines, but has the same abilities as the older school hardware computers. It's able to run applications. It's able to access CPUs and memory. It's able to access the internet, I/O, off of storage devices, etc. Our patent covers devices, systems, and methods of zero trust value transfer, of which the Ethereum is one device. Looking at it from that perspective, the patent is pervasive throughout the industry. Again, not because the patent is so broad, the patent is actually very specific, but the industry has moved to develop in the same direction that the patent was envisioned back in 2013. Hence, it's my non-professional or uneducated, shall I say, non-legal opinion that Ethereum infringes on claims of the patent. Okay, and if Ethereum infringes on claims of the patent, then all of the applications that use Ethereum infringe by default. The method and way that Ethereum infringes should work with any other chain that uses an EVM compatible device, Ethereum virtual machine compatible device, which is practically all of the so-called Ethereum killers, because basically there are forks or versions of Ethereum that have been customized and changed and improved, etc. And they create the EVM compatibility because Ethereum is the gorilla in the space, the big gorilla in the room, 600-pound gorilla. And in order to get development mind share, you want to make it easy for developers to move their apps from Ethereum to a smaller chain. And there you go. I've always stated that it's our belief and my personal belief that this IP is the most significant thing in the industry. And this is further evidence to that. I'll actually step through specific ways in which applications on top of the actual machine is potentially infringing. I can't do that in this video because it's a little technical, but I will do it on Twitter later on today.
Okay. Now, when you mean Ethereum killers, you're referring to some of these projects such as Solana or
right.
your Polygon networks and
Solana,
things of that nature,
Cardano, Polygon, yeah.
Now,
basically, as I see it, I haven't found a distributed ledger technology that's compatible with Ethereum virtual machine that we don't touch yet. But now, there's a lot out there, and
have you done any deep dives on some of these Ethereum killers on these other layer 2 protocols? I know you've done your research with Ethereum, but with some of these other layer 2 projects like Polygon, for instance, which we're seeing a lot of projects switch over to, have you done a deep dive on those specifically, or just because they're based off of Ethereum, regardless, that they infringe on the IP, or do you want to see the utility that some of these other projects provide? I think you're on mute, Reggie. I think Solana, you're still on mute. Oh.
We've done a deep dive.
Okay, I can hear you now.
We've done a deep dive on Solana. We've done a deep dive on Binance and Binance Smart Chain. We've done a deep dive on applications such as Axie Infinity, Uniswap, Compound. We've done a deep dive on RippleNet and Ripple's implementation of on-demand liquidity. On a to-do list is Cardano and Polygon, etc. But those are primarily academic, because what makes Ethereum infringe will make the others infringe, because the base architecture is very similar.
Correct.
As I understand it, at least.
Now,
remember, I'm not as smart as many of these other guys, so there's a lot that could be missing.
Oh no, I think give yourself more credit than that. Now, come on. Well, for some of these layer 2s, for your academic research on them, is there anyone in particular that you kind of see that has a best use case that can kind of expand more with applications and everything in the development space?
It's hard to tell now because they're just coming out. Right now, I was looking for who I feel may or may not infringe on the patent, and the layer 2s almost by definition infringe because of the way they assist the layer 1s. I use the Bitcoin Lightning Network as a perfect example, but there's also optimism, etc. As for which ones are fundamentally more promising than the other, we haven't looked into it from that perspective. And even if we were, you have to understand that's very difficult to do because there's a decent amount of guesswork going in there. A lot of the technical guys in the crypto space tend to think that, the best technology wins, and that's not the way it works in reality. There's technology, what makes it best in what, marketing, implementation, actual business management, which probably means more than everything else, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And combine that with the fact that this is brand new and just getting started, this is more guesswork and artistry than pure technical analysis. Right.
Okay, I got you. And then, and let me ask you, I don't know if you've seen lately, with the whole Yuga Labs and Bored Ape, the Ape coin and everything, and with the newest release that they had last week, kind of clogged up, well, not kind of, but it clogged up the Ethereum network. And now we're seeing that they're moving over to Polygon network, and just the amount of transactions that can process through. When we see a layer 2 that's performing better than a layer 1, as opposed to Polygon versus Ethereum, is that sustainable, or is that, how can a layer 2 be better than the layer 1, so to speak?
Okay. Well, I have not looked at it forensically, and I haven't looked at it closely. But when I did look at it, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I'm not convinced that Polygon is performing better than Ethereum? Number one, Polygon needs to have the same load that Ethereum had over the same amount of time before you can even make that call. So because board 8 moves over to Polygon doesn't mean, and Polygon is running faster, doesn't mean Polygon is outperforming Ethereum. When all of Ethereum moves over to Polygon for an extended period of time, and then Polygon still outperforms, then we have a discussion.
Now, when you say a load, does that include all? Yeah, I do understand. When you say load, does that include all the other smart contracts from all the other layer 2 applications as well? Is that what you're referring to, or just strictly on the Ethereum chain?
Right.
Okay.
Well, everything that's running on Ethereum, as it's running on Ethereum, goes over to Polygon, and it runs faster and better without glitches. Then you could say Polygon has a chance of being empirically proven to be superior. But that hasn't happened. Polygon has had more than its fair share of, glitches and hiccups. Okay, and that's not knocking Polygon. This is complex stuff. This is all very new, and things are going to go wrong by definition. Okay, but this was wrong for. And this is not me favoring Ethereum or not favoring Polygon. This is me being realistic. All this stuff theoretically is really in beta. For my
correct. And we're still seeing the scaling process of everything. As you said, we're in beta, so there's going to be a lot of tests. There's going to be failures. There's going to be improvements in the projects, but people just have to be patient from the developer side and the user side with this scaling up of everything.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So now I wanted to ask you something too. With you having a traditional finance background, and now you're mainly in the DeFi crypto space. Do you believe that Bitcoin is an escape from inflation? I've read some of your reports on stagflation. And I personally don't think we've hit that point yet, just because of unemployment dropping down quick, and we may see a change in that. But what are your thoughts on the conversation that Bitcoin is an escape from inflation, which we haven't seen so far yet?
Well, I think honestly it's a nonsensical conversation. You have no idea what Bitcoin is, right? Bitcoin was first launched in 2009 and didn't gain sufficient liquidity to be purchased by an institution or retail masses till 2015, maybe 2014. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So realistically, and even then, you're talking very thin floats. But realistically, let's say 2014, best case scenario, Bitcoin has a trading history of 8 years. So you have no idea what it does during inflation. This is the first inflationary bout Bitcoin's ever experienced, and it's just the beginning. So how are you going to determine whether Bitcoin? Yeah, how are you going to determine, whether how Bitcoin deals with inflation? In order to determine how it deals with inflation, you would take, say, 20 random inflationary bouts. You take out the outliers, the extremes, and then you take the medium of the bout and compare it to the average. That's, say, 17 other bouts other than that, or 18 other bouts. You can't take 18 bouts from Bitcoin versus inflation because Bitcoin doesn't have one bout. You understand what I mean?
Now, when you say about, what do you mean by?
In other words, every time inflation occurs over, say, a 1.5 year period or 2 year
mm-hmm.
period, you would compare that to Bitcoin, right, and see if Bitcoin would have given you an advantage over holding, say, fiat currency for that inflationary period. And you have to do multiple periods. You need a sizable sample size in order for it to be statistically valid. Okay, so minimum 20 different occurrences of inflation versus fiat currency, or having Bitcoin during the inflationary period versus fiat currency, a minimum of 20. Okay, for it to be statistically valid. Then you eliminate any outliers, or you may try and merge them in. Then you take the median and the mean, and you see basically how Bitcoin performs. You simply can't do that. Bitcoin is literally a baby. So you have one bout of inflation now, and you have no idea how Bitcoin will perform. And if you do measure that, depending when you start measuring it, then Bitcoin's perform horribly. You can say Bitcoin drops from 60,000 to 40,000. Now, saying Bitcoin performs horribly during inflation is also nonsensical because you don't know. You can't say it performs well. You can't say it doesn't perform well. All you can honestly say is, I have no idea.
Right.
And
but
I don't have an idea.
Like,
I'm not smart enough to know. It's not pretending.
Everybody likes to say they have an answer for it, opinions. Everybody has an opinion nowadays that matters.
Yeah. So, like I said, that's like saying, how well does your average 5-year-old, or how old is Bitcoin? 8 years? How well does your 8-year-old drink, during weddings? Well, how many 8-year-olds have gotten drunk at weddings? How many times?
Yeah. I think we might go to jail off that. Okay, so
I don't know. Some of my daughters scare me though.
So I get that we don't have enough. We don't have a bigger sample size. It's not enough historical context to make that
you don't have
comparison or assumption.
Size.
You said all sample size?
No, you said you don't even have a sample size.
Correct.
Right. This is the first bout of inflation that Bitcoin's occurred, and it just started. So you don't even have this sample size. Not even one.
Right. Because we're just getting
everything
started.
Is speculation. Yeah.
So then, do you still think that we will be in a period of stagflation?
I think it's guaranteed, and I think we're in a period of stagflation now. If you pulled up numbers, if you have access to Fred, okay, you pulled up GDP, right? Last two measures of GDP, and then pull up the last two measures of inflation, okay, and see if GDP has increased over the last two, reported measures, and then see if inflation has remained stagnant, level, or if it's increased. Obviously, inflation going up as GDP goes down. So I'm taking a guess because I haven't looked at the numbers right now, but it's a good chance if you looked at the numbers right now, you see a stagflationary trend today.
Yeah. And I read a little bit about your, yes, you are correct. And I read some of your report that you released out in November. And I know since then you also included with the unemployment rate, and we have seen a decrease in that, but is that a major factor in that as well, or compared to the GDP and inflation rates?
See, here's the issue with numbers, especially numbers put up by the government when the government has a potential ulterior motive. The unemployment rate has decreased, okay, but has the definition of unemployment remains the same during that period, right? And have the jobs that have been given remain the same. So the definition of unemployment has changed over the last 30 years, and more than once, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely at least once. The jobs that are being contributed to the unemployment rate, assuming it hasn't changed over the last 5 years, I don't think it has, but the jobs that are going into qualifying as employed are not the same quality jobs that were in existence before the lockdown. Okay, so if you take a look at, if you have a lot of minimum wage service workers, okay, and they make up a significant portion of the labor rate, but before then, right, they were replacing the $30 or an hour and up or professional services workers, then you can see where there's a decrease in unemployment or the rate of unemployment, but you also see there's a decrease in the average dollars earned and a decrease in the median rate of compensation for those who are working. So that's gobbledygook for saying the jobs, the lesser jobs, there are more jobs of lesser quality or lesser pay. So you have an unemployment rate that's going down, but you get a gross compensation level of people that are also going down at the same time, which means that should be a drop in the economic quality of the country.
So basically, even these
that well?
Yeah, I get you. So basically, these $15 an hour wages that we saw increase aren't going to do anything, is what you're saying, right?
Right. I mean, you have more $15 an hour jobs, and you just have a cut in your $50 an hour job. And the reason
Right.
why it's $15 an hour is because the minimum wage is raised to either $15 or $18 in a lot of the big coastal states like New York. Without that, that floor would have been broken. You can tell one way I've noticed, easy way to tell, not scientific, but I think easy for me to understand, the economic health and vibrancy of a city is take a look at the real estate. Okay, if you fly into Miami, right, and take a cab from the airport to Miami, you see a lot of properties are empty and boarded up. Into Overtown and through the areas, and then down the city center is vibrant because Miami has an influx of river. But right outside of that, a lot of that stuff is boarded up. You go to the most metropolitan area in New York City, and you see vacancies everywhere where it used to be prime real estate. Okay, for instance, and I have videos on my YouTube channel, Soho, Mid Manhattan, Herald Square, Union Square, Times Square, Fifth Avenue, Madison Avenue. You know, corner properties, prime real estate, the most expensive commercial real estate in the city, vacancy. We're talking up to 50-55% vacancy. Unheard of. That's
I actually read in an article last week that Times Square has lost over like 30 or 40% of their revenue just from all the empty real estate out there now.
Right.
And then I'm down here in Georgia, and I've seen a lot of people flock from New York down to Florida and Georgia myself. So it's definitely a migration going on.
And there's now a reverse migration from Miami back into New York. Because the New Yorkers, I don't know what they were thinking, like they haven't been to Miami before, but they knew what was down there, but they ran anyway, and now they're coming back. So
it's too much. Florida's a different beast.
Yeah. So when you have your commercial sector, failing at that rate, your economy is not doing well. Now, part of it is structural. Okay. The advent of the internet after the lockdown, you had a lot of closing downs because and go shopping, but they even people who weren't used to doing online shopping did it anyway because their choices were minimized, and then they stuck to the online shopping habit. So that's a structural from retail malls and corner stores, corner storefronts to the internet. But a lot of it is part of long-term cyclical. They're just not doing well. Those two. Then you have an economic stagnation. And usually when you have an economic stagnation, that means a lot of people are not paying a lot because they're not making a lot of money. And so you have a drop in prices. But we have an increase in prices, not because so many people are making so much money that they're going on shopping sprees, buying Mercedes-Benz and Teslas and 100 flat-screen TVs and 400 iPhones. That increase in prices is also structural because you have the supply chain, which was damaged, halted, and it's hard to restart from the lockdown. And you also have war. So Russia, is at war with Ukraine. The EU, UK, and the states or have sanctions and refusing to buy Russian fuel. Russia says, well, we're going to price out from the rubles, etc. That drives food prices up. Right? It's also driving food prices up. So these increases in prices are not coming from the competition of too many dollars, or too many dollars trying to get to XYZ units of product to be purchased. It's coming from those units of products to be purchased are now limited in supply. So that's where stagflation is coming from. A stagnated economy, which I've just walked through, giving real estate as an example, also giving employment as an example, as well as inflated prices. Okay, it's the worst of both worlds. Now, a lot of people say, well, the economy is doing very well. How many of your friends have gotten 20 or 30% raises over the last year?
Unless we're switching jobs, we're not getting that.
And how many of your friends whose businesses are booming pre-pandemic levels? So you may be doing better from pandemic levels because you were at zero. So
Right.
everything above zero is an increase, right? But whose businesses are booming using the pre-pandemic level as the base? Not many. And the only ones that are really doing well on average are the ones that are benefiting from the structural change, the online vendors, etc. And to make matters even worse, a lot of them have missed the big public companies. You know why? Because they have a big boom in business, but when people start going back to work, there's a slight normalization. That's why, in my mistake, in my opinion, I didn't look into it thoroughly because I really don't care. I'm not in equity markets because right now that's the biggest gamble you can make. You're better off throwing fists in the air and hoping one of them comes down as gold. But you know, everybody stayed home, so they doubled and tripled up for their Netflix. Okay, they did more shopping at Amazon. They did more Googling. So they did everything through the phone. When you go back to work, right, you do less of that. Peloton had a big miss because everybody stayed at home and did Peloton. Bought a Peloton bike. Now, right, you're going back. There's a slight loosening. You know, they jump on a bicycle and do it the regular way.
Man, I think I see they were down
a few more people.
86%.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of people to ride the regular bicycle to hurt Peloton.
Right. So, and to that point,
so again, this is not a fundamentally research. Like, you know, I have no incentive to look into equities at this time. You know, it's a ridiculous crapshoot. And I think, honestly, if you don't mind gambling, it's one thing. But, you know, if you have a lot of stuff on the table, you take your gains off, and you don't put them in inflators, you put in something that has a chance of holding some of its value until the world gets back to normal.
So you're
back to its new normal.
You're completely out of the equity markets, like you personally, if you don't mind me asking?
Personally. Okay. I've been out of the equity markets for some time. And I missed a lot of the big gains in equity markets. It could care less because there are big gains to me, right? There's a big swing and a total gamble. Okay. I did catch the gains in crypto because I live in crypto now.
Now, what are your thoughts on with these 401k or these crypto-backed 401ks that Fidelity has offered, and that they want to start branching out to their employers for people like us to put our 401ks in? What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't looked into it, but, you know, crypto-backed 401k, if you go to a big company and pay that big company big fees to hold something that you have, you can easily just do yourself. All you do is donating money, and you're being fooled. You're being got. You know, they're robbing you, and they don't need to use a gun. They're using mind share. So, you know, you want to put money away and attach advantage vehicle, buy yourself some crypto, okay, and use your own tax advantage. You know,
I like.
There's a few of them. There's at least one.
I like to own my crypto. You know, I'm always on Zay's famous saying, "No keys, no cheese." And I need all my private keys. I need all my coins.
You're paying them for absolutely nothing. Nothing at all.
I highly agree. And, you know, I definitely will look into it. I mean, my job offers, they're partnered with Fidelity for 401ks, but, you know, that little extra money I'm spending there, I definitely will put that in just to see what happens, though. But on my own personal time, I wouldn't mess with it. You still there, Reggie? I think you're going in and out a little bit.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
The only reason I would do is if the employer has a matching program. So if they'll match like 50%, you know, or 50% match, then it's worth it because now, you know, they're giving you a little extra leverage. It's not even leverage, they're just giving you money. But if it's a pure, you know, contribution, you know, you never ever pay people to, you know, hold your money and give them fees to hold it.
And then I think the one, I need to look into it more myself too, but I think the one thing that I would be more concerned about is, you know, what happens when it's time to retire and I want to take that crypto out? You know, what do the taxes look like? You know, and that's a whole nother ordeal. That's, you know, the regular people, like, you know, who are looking to put their money in have no idea what's going to be coming down with tax laws with crypto and everything like that, especially with these 401ks. So it's definitely something to watch out for.
Yeah, I get the feeling that the government is going to push all retail crypto activity into centralized, conventional venues. So you're going to go through your bank and broker anyway, and it's going to be very inexpensive, if not possibly easy to handle it on your own. And that's where I see the tea leaves going, but who knows if it's going to turn out that way? You'll find out.
Right. And I think with that, we can end it all for the day. Reggie, I know you want to get back to your daughter's field trip, but I appreciate the time as always today, sir.
Okay. Well, pleasure speaking. I didn't get the got about it. I'll be honest, but I'll tweet it out afterwards after I get to what's going to say.
All right, no problem. Sounds good, Reggie.
Okay.
Take care.
Okay. And next week, if you have the time, I'll walk through an analysis to show how comprehensive the patented IP is on air, to show everybody how absolutely ridiculous it is for the major media outlets not to run this. As a matter of fact, I'll walk through how the patent covers over 50% of the companies that own the major news outlets. I'll literally walk you through it, and I dare, double and triple dare anybody to come in town here.
And I'll quadruple dare. I'll add on top of that.
Listen, I don't hide. Anytime you want to chat, you want to call me a Floyd, whatever, step up. Let's have the conversation. Okay?
Hey, that's what we're here for, Reggie. I appreciate you sharing that info.